Uh, you have, I'm sure, received other communications from me about Vas's research and his accomplishments there. Today, his talk is going to be on a very unique thing that he has done in teaching international business, and that has to do with student collaboration projects, and there's an international global one that he runs, as a way to enhance learning, research, and networking. So Vas will share his experiences with the X Culture project that involves a collaboration of over 1,500 students from 30 countries in a given semester. As a part of the course, in teams of four to seven, the students from different countries work together for about 2 months, experience challenges, and learn best practices of international virtual collaboration. The presentation will focus on challenges and best practices of recruiting participants and coordinating their efforts, collaboration exercises as a research platform, challenges and best practices for data collection, analysis, and paper co-development, the effects of international collaboration projects on learning, students' feedback, and teaching evaluations, powerful and free virtual collaboration tools for data collection, co-author, and team member coordination, performance tracking, and paper co-development, and collaboration exercises as a professional, interpersonal, and interinstitutional networking platform. Thank you, Vas. That was a pretty long list, and I'm sure you'll get there.
Yes, and I probably should start with apologies. First of all, I was a little late. For some reason, I thought it was a 3. Second, as you know, even though the project is supposed to be about high-tech stuff, in fact, many things that I will be discussing today haven't been even available for more than half a year. And at the same time, as you can see, technology doesn't work. So I'm not sure if it's a good sign. Anyway, today I want to talk a little bit about a project that I've been running for a couple of years now. And even though this one was specifically designed for an international management course, something's telling me you can successfully or equally successfully use the same approach in just about any course. I'm going to start with a very simple question, and it was supposed to be displayed on the screen, but I suppose it doesn't matter. What are the goals of a faculty member? What do faculty members want? Well, I suppose all of us want different things, and I don't know, I have pictures of some of the faculty members here, but whatever we want, I guess there is only one way to get there, or different goals, but one way. And that would be good research, right? Good teaching, and good what?
Good service.
Services, right? And I think I might have invented the best way to cover all three. I have to give you a warning, and again, all three. But first, a little bit about the project. So, as was said in the presentation of this presentation, what I'm talking about here is a project in which students from about 30 countries work together for a semester. It's a little bit shorter than a real semester because in some countries the semester starts later, in some earlier. So we get about 2 months of when students work together. And during that time, students learn something, and I'll tell you later on what they learn. I get a chance to collect some data. I meet people from all around the world, and I'd like to think that I do something valuable for the academic community. And so let me talk a little bit first about, warning, even though it sounds like a magic tool, it's not a magic pill. There will be lots of what I call butt time when you spend on your butt working. In fact, if I may tell you, I thought about that just 10 minutes ago. When I was a teenager, I was doing martial arts. And I remember one time we were sitting after a competition, and one of my friends said something like this. He says, human body is so perfect. I mean, there is no way we can further improve. And I say something like, you know what, if I had a tail, that would help. Now I think I was wrong. Actually, I wish I had a stronger brain. With this stuff, when you have so many people involved and so much data being collected, I really wish I had a few extra gigabytes of RAM in my brain, because sometimes it is literally like I feel the pain here trying to comprehend everything. Many of you make fun of me because I have 4 screens connected to my computer. Well, it's a necessity when you have so much stuff going on. Flipping between documents in one screen is just impossible. So anyway, it's definitely a possibility with something like this, with a project like this, but it will require lots of work. But the good thing is it's a predictable success. As long as you do it, you will definitely get there. You will have all those three. Unlike, for example, a regular research where you can be working for years and you don't, like lottery, you don't know if it's going to lead to an outcome or not. I think I should start with history. And there are actually some people here related to that history. So where the idea came from. It's not because I'm so smart, it's just a lucky coincidence, I guess. When I joined this school, at that time, Economics 300 was a prerequisite for Management 301. And turns out there was some overlap in the two courses. So there were some things the students were taking or that we were covering in those two courses, Jeff and I. And so one of the things that we decided to do is to review what content we have in our courses, see where the overlap is, and see if we can eliminate that overlap. And so I couldn't think of anything better than just to order all possible international business textbooks and just basically see what's normally covered in an international business course. I ordered, I'd say, about 20 of them. Pretty much every single textbook on IB I could find. And as I was going through those books, I found one very interesting thing. Anyone knows what that thing is? I was very surprised. The only time when
You all begin with
no,
Hofstede.
the amazing thing was that they were all identical. It's like statistics books, I mean, exactly the same list of chapters. Sometimes they would change chapter 2 and chapter 3, but it's exactly the same content. And at that time I thought, well, if everyone teaches the same content, maybe I can find a professor in a different country and team up my students with the students of that professor, and they will basically, learn international business or management in practice. And so that was the idea. Yes, that's basically how my idea came along. I couldn't think of anything better than to send out a call to, maybe recruit some partners through the Academy of Management, Academy of International Business listservs. And that's the first challenge. How do you find those partners? Well, luckily for us, we have these professional associations. And again, luckily for me, I got about 50 responses in the first hour from all around the world. Some people would just say, thank you, that's a great idea. Others would say, I want to participate. Not all who signed up participated eventually. There were some last-minute dropouts, but we had, and I have a map here, 7 countries in the first semester. So I'm not sure if
taking questions as you go. Or
you can ask the question.
Can I
Sure.
stop you right
Yes.
here? What was your goal when you sent out that email or broadcasting to all these folks? What was your request? What was your exact request?
Well, this is an excellent question, because when I was doing it 2 years ago, or when I'm going through my documents and correspondence, I was so, not dumb, inexperienced at that time. For example, in terms of my goal, the only goal was to give students an interesting project to work on, academic. I never thought that it would lead to good research or good academic service. In terms of what I was asking for, I just basically said I have this idea, so if anyone teaches international business, do you want to team up your students with my students and have them
Do on a common
Yes.
project.
Now I do
End of
completely
story.
different. And now I advertise the research part first, and then I say, by the way, your students will actually give you very good evaluations. So now, I mean, first, the whole idea to collect data came in the second semester when somebody emailed me and said, I'm finishing up my doctoral dissertation, can I use your students to collect my data? And then I thought, oh, sure. I mean, I don't know about your students, but I have lots of ideas of my own, why not? And so I applied for the IRB approval. Surprisingly, it was easy to get because it's part of the course. And so, yeah, but anyway, the first semester we had 7 countries, and I have, if you can see the dots here. Then in the next semester,
Is it India or Pakistan?
we had
Right?
Pakistan in the first one. We
Okay.
have 4
I
universities
want to
from
be this
India.
specific.
We have 4 universities from India this semester. So that's the second semester added countries, then again, and again. So as of now, this semester, this very semester, we have 31 countries, 47 universities, about almost 2,000 students. That's the largest we've ever had. We'll see how it goes. And on the one hand, I'm kind of happy about it. On the other hand, I almost regret that I let so many people in. It's just a nightmare to manage it. That's definitely very challenging. The worst part, and I will be talking about it later, is that you can't really outsource it to students very much. Most of the things require decision making, so it's not like some data merging, yes, some maybe, I don't know, but emails, including correspondence with students occasionally and all the different instructors, most of those requires that I make decisions, and so I cannot really hire a secretary or a person on my money to do that. Another problem is that there are only so many, there are some things that students can do. For example, as I said, you get massive data sets with thousands of observations measured at multiple points in time. So you have all those Excel files that it takes like 5 minutes just to open. But there are only 2 people that I know except for me who can do that kind of work. There is one guy there. He never did it, but I know he's capable of it. And then there is this guy, Donald Allen, one of your GAs, who for some reason was assigned only for quarter time to me this semester, so I can get him only for 4 hours. And the other students, and I've had named
Donald who?
Donald
It's an
Allen.
MSA student.
MSA.
And he expressed interest to move into accounting, his major as a GA next semester, so I'm going to lose him, even though he's been apparently enjoying it. All the other students, graduate students that I've had worked with, both directly as my GAs as well as hired completely useless. I mean, they can just don't get it. First of all, I'm surprised how a student can be getting an MBA in, for example, accounting and not know what vertical lookup is. How many of you don't know what vertical lookup is? Shame on
In
you.
Microsoft Excel?
Yes, but many students don't, and then you have.
No, I don't know it myself.
Oh,
I
all
was
right,
asking.
so all right, that's fine. No, but what I mean is that some of those things require a little bit more
Yes.
knowledge than just how to enter data. And as I said, I've had only one student who was capable of doing it. In fact, he was better than I at that stuff, and he would keep talking some things. But anyway, so
What
that's.
is that country in the middle of the Pacific? American Samoa?
Hawaii.
No, that's Hawaii. We have a
Oh.
university. I mean, yeah, and then we have New Zealand and just
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
So we have all continents represented, island nations, Antarctica.
So
is
just
the only
Ghana,
one.
is that Ghana in Africa?
Yes.
Okay.
They have about 150 MBA students every semester. They've been participating for, I believe, a year and a half.
So here it's a combination of MBA students and undergraduates.
Excellent question. We have almost half of them are MBA students. This semester we tried to keep MBAs with MBAs, undergrads with undergraduate students. Again, I'll have a separate slide on that, but I want to say separate than a comment here. One of the big challenges is that most of the applications come from the United States. If you teach economics or maybe marketing or whatever else you teach engineering, for you it probably wouldn't matter. So the composition of the team. In fact, you would probably be happy with all schools being from the United States. For me, because part of the project, or one of the main reasons of the project, is that students get international experience or cross-cultural experience. We want the teams to be as culturally diverse as possible. And so I have to turn down about a dozen, maybe more applications from US-based schools every semester, just because we would have too many American students, and basically half of each team will be American. Another problem is that even with those rejections, we still get quite a few American students, and all American universities this semester have undergraduate students only, or those who participate. And so we have a number of only MBA teams, but they would have one American undergraduate student on that team, kind of to make it a little bit more culturally balanced.
And this is part of an assignment.
Yes, it's a course. Yes, that's an excellent question. It's a part of a course. And in fact, I guess that's my next slide. So I'll have a whole. Yeah, by the way, these are the countries of studies. We have 69 countries this semester by country of origin. So then you can imagine many students are not from the country where they study. So we have a truly global team. And yeah, I had some pictures of our students here, but obviously you couldn't see them from all around the world. So. Well, I talked about challenges of finding partners, and as I said, I was using the Academy of Management, Academy of International Business listservs. The challenge there is that even though membership in those organizations is huge, but there is virtually no one, for example, for former Soviet Union. And so this is the very first semester I was able to recruit 2 schools from Ukraine, but only because I knew the professors. And so that's how I found them. They just never come into those conferences. There may be, like, for example, African universities where we have Ghana. The professor just happens to be a member of the Academy of Management, but then again, I'm sure there are more who would have participated, and they just probably don't know about the project. So that's one challenge. Another one.
Nothing from the American University in Cairo, nothing from the bigger universities of South Africa.
No, we have 3 universities from United Arab Emirates this semester, which is not quite Africa,
Yeah.
right? So, and yeah, nothing else from Africa. We had, and I didn't have a slide for that, but maybe I should mention, in the second semester, we have I received an email from a student who says, I'm studying in Africa. I'm not sure what country, but I don't remember anymore, Nigeria. And he says, well, my professor wouldn't participate, but I would like to participate myself for experience. And I say, well, sure, yeah, I'm happy, first of African students, so I basically put him on the mailing list. The semester, I started the whole thing like 3 months before the semester started, so we get everything arranged. So there are about 20 professors on the list, and so we communicate, exchange ideas and stuff like that. And then one day I received, he gave me 2 email addresses, and one day I get error message for both of them. And I didn't know what to do, and then one professor also emails to everyone, and what is it, the same thing, Charles Waddle, he's kind of big around field from New York. Anyway, he, unlike me, is more experienced, and so he starts researching what's going on. And so he goes and searches for that email address. Turns out the guy from Africa is an old scammer. And so his email accounts, Yahoo and Gmail, I believe, were blocked. And so I want to be nice, I don't want to say anything bad to him, but I emailed him, eventually he emails me and says, my mail account, something happened, here's another 3rd address. And I started asking him, so what school exactly are you at and stuff? It turns out, yeah, the guy has nothing to do. And I don't know how he found out about the project, but the good news is it was before I sent out the list of all 1,000-something students to all instructors with emails. So the damage was basically mild at that time, but could have been much worse.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of my first questions I wanted to ask. When you said you allowed one individual student, how do you know the credentials of the student as opposed to the class? If it's a professor, it's much more.
Well, I naturally
authenticated.
assume that it's a graduate student, as he introduced himself, who is a member of the Academy of Management, and he's on the listserv, so I thought, the only way he would have known is that,
A
But again,
professor.
at that time, didn't even occur to me, now I know. In fact, when Professor Akameya from Africa contacted me and asked if I would like to participate, my first reaction was, is that another guy or it's a real guy? And then I noticed that he says I'm from Ghana. I go to Moses Akwa and ask if, what he thinks. And he says, what's the name? I say, Akameya. Oh, I know the guy. I mean, he's my friend, yes. So, yeah. So,
And he's a spammer.
yeah. Another problem is that, as I said, many professors sign up but then drop out at the last minute. Obviously the difference in schedules is an issue. Semester starts at a different time. So this semester, for example, for the first time, we had a two-track kind of arrangement. So we had early track and late track. Early track just finished, and late track started about 5 days ago. And so some countries, especially Commonwealth countries like the UK, Ireland, India, there the semester starts earlier, ends earlier, and in many schools actually they have short semesters. So we had a bunch of those countries participating from January till March, and then the rest starts from March and we go till May, so this semester. So those kind of issues. But again, it's manageable, and I guess the only other challenge I had was that in some countries, professors are much more depend much more on their administration, and I had to write support letters to the professors that they presented to their deans, so that the deans give them the permission to participate in the project. But now I have a matrix level, so they every time a request comes from somewhere in Indonesia, no problem, please whatever, so that kind of works well. In terms of the task, again, for me the challenge was how do you design the task so that it's first beneficial to the students, enjoyable to the students, fits well with the course requirements, and at the same time, as I said, can be still used for a research purpose. And so again, I'm sure you can use a different task if you teach a different course. What I decided to do is our students are writing a business proposal for an existing international company, and we give them a list of from Walmart to Toyota, so there are a number of worldwide known companies, and they basically have to come up with the next big idea for the company and write up a business plan. And so the business plan follows the chapters of the Standard International Business Book. So where would you build your factory or provide a service from? Where would you hire people, locals, expatriates, third country nationals? If you need more money, how would you obtain financing? What would be the challenges of payments? Would you go with a greenfield or buy an existing company? How would you incorporate it into a larger company? So basically all those kind of questions. And so there are about 10 or 12 questions that they have to answer. The questions require some special knowledge, but the good thing is that even a student who is not really a guru in international business and economics still can say something to just about any of those questions. So even though some students come less prepared, they still may have some ideas and they still can provide some interesting feedback. So that serves very well because, again, my students, I would say, are more prepared just because I designed the project and I designed it specifically to fit my course. For some professors, it may not be such a perfect fit, so some of the questions, if they were too technical, students may not be fully prepared. One thing I should emphasize, though, is that at least in my course, and it may not be the case for other courses, but to my students, I emphasize that this is an exercise, it's not a test, meaning that I'm more lenient about the quality of their answers, and I'm more interested in the process and the experience. So I say that as long as you, as a team, provide a report that answers every question, and it makes some sense, your questions make some sense, and you all agree on that, I'm happier. So for me, you've gained experience to work for a semester with others. And I'm not that concerned about the exact quality of the project. You have take-home assignments, you have exams, that's going to test your knowledge. Here it's about experience, so try to gain that experience. And so that makes, kind of alleviates stress, students become much more relaxed and enjoy the process much more. Because in the first semester, we were evaluating them on a series of tasks, and every time it was from 1 to 100 scale, and so sometimes some students were not fully prepared. Some didn't speak English. Some were just, not diligent enough. And as you can imagine, then the rest of the team gets, upset because they feel that they're underpowered or, they have this balance.
Yes. What if the team's comprised of one student from a different country?
Yes, normally it's 7 students, 7 countries, though again, occasionally we have 2 American students. And this is actually a very good question. I'm not sure if you kind of wanted to answer me so deeply, but again, since my purpose is, one of the purposes of the project is research, and one of the research questions we're trying to answer is how team diversity affects team performance and dynamics. And by diversity, I mean anything from number of countries represented to geographic distance between the team members to cultural difference, to economic difference, all those kinds of things. The problem is that if every team is 7 students, 7 countries, you don't really have a control group where everything is homogeneous. And so this semester, for the first time, we actually have a number of teams that are one country, one nation teams. And we have a few American teams where it's virtual teams, different cities, but all Americans. And we have also luckily a few teams, Italy, Spain, Taiwan, if I remember correctly, Hong Kong, where part of the class was fluent enough in English to participate in international teams. But then there were some students who wanted to participate, but didn't speak English enough, and so they would be doing exactly the same task, but they will be working only with students from that same class. So we'll have some monocultural teams, as well as we'll have some traditional virtual teams. And so one of the goals is to see if the way they communicate, the way they perform is different, depending on all those things. But yes, generally in 7 countries, 7 students. And they basically just write the business plan. Again, I have a separate slide on that, but maybe I should talk about that now. One of the big kind of dreams is that one day the students will not only write those proposals and get their grades, but since we have real existing companies, the hope is that one day those companies will express interest working with us. And in the ideal world, I would want to first members of the best teams to be flown to the campus of the company, meet the management, maybe the CEO, present their idea, and maybe even see their idea implemented in the real world. I've had a number of meetings with DF, and they express general interest, but eventually they're not sure if they have manpower to review the proposals, because we have 200 teams at a time, 250 actually this semester. But hopefully that's one thing. So for the companies, that would be a huge benefit, because half of these MBA students and half of those are senior undergraduate students. So a year from now, they will graduate, and you will have to pay lots of money for them to share their ideas with you. And now they're basically working for you for free. So, and who knows, maybe one of them will come up with the next big thing. For the students, the big advantage is always they work kind of for a real company. They feel like they now have real practical experience, not just work with other students. So we'll see if it's going to work or not, but that's kind of the ultimate goal. And so we now have, in the very first semester, we used the hypothetical joint venture. Now we have the real companies. And again, the plan is to send those proposals to the companies and hope that they maybe will participate. And then maybe give some money to the students to, maybe win the teams. And maybe, just maybe, some of the students will be hired, because for the company, it's like a semester-long interview. You get all the data on student performance, from diligence to quality to creativity. And so I guess, what else do you want? You can wish for.
So what exactly is the instruction that's given to the students? I'm imagining that you get all of this data from the perspective of the instructors email you the list of the students that are in your class. And do you create the groups?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you create the groups. So then you create the assignment in terms of instructions, what exactly it is that the group is supposed to do.
Yes.
So what do you tell them to do?
Well,
What
the
exactly
instructions, there are 2 sets of instructions. One is a short 3-page document, which basically says, imagine that you're a consulting team to a company. This is the list of companies, choose one that you like. You have to come up with a business proposal for that company and write a business plan. These are the answers for topics that you need to discuss in your business plan. Then this is the format requirements for the proposal. This is how you submit the proposal. We use Turnitin for a university in Australia. It allows us to put everything, basically like digital Dropbox of Blackboard. So because Blackboard wouldn't allow me to accept submissions from other universities. So basically that's what you need to do. But then there is another document that we call X-Culture Training Document. This one is about 40 pages long, and so this one has screenshots for, this is how you use, for example, Google Docs. This is how you use Google Plus. This is how you use Skype, all that kind of stuff. For each of those tools and for each of those ideas, we have a link to a video that students can watch for 3-4 minutes online and kind of see how it's done. Common challenges that we've experienced over these years, best practices for dealing with those experiences. Like one of your teammates is not answering. It's Sunday, the deadline is Monday, and half of your team disappears. What's going on? Well, half of your team is probably in Israel as was last semester. Turns out that Saturday there almost was a big kind of holiday there, and so like not half of the team, but we had a huge class from there, and so there was
It's Sabbath, man.
Yes, well, we didn't know.
You can't even turn on the computer.
Sunday nights, like several hours before deadline, all of a sudden I get like 15 emails not only from my students, but from all around the world. And they say, my Israeli teammates disappeared. What do you do? What do you do? We have only a few hours before deadline. I don't know. I sent the email to the instructor, and he says, oh yeah, that's not only Sabbath, it's a special Sabbath. And so yeah, they will be online in a few hours once the sun rises. So, but, you know, those kinds of things. And so we kind of discussed those challenges there so that they know how to use them. Plus, as I said, we give instructions to how to use those tools. Many of them, in the first semester, students would stick with email. Email, that's like 5 years ago. I mean, today we have Google Plus, Google Docs, Dropbox, and surprisingly, again, many people don't even know how to use those tools, but they are so valuable when we have to co-edit a document together. And so that's, again, another opportunity for the students to learn how to use things. In fact, Google Plus hasn't even been available half a year ago, so it's from last summer. Yes, anyway.
I don't know whether you're getting into this. How are these students putting themselves into teams? Do
Well,
you do that, or do
Yes,
faculty get involved?
actually, I should get back to that, yes. I do it myself, arbitrary. I tried in the first semester to solicit, you know, preferences. I mean, when you have people
some
involved.
people, yes.
So I just basically open all the names on the file and in Excel and just mix and match. And then I use mail merge in Excel, in Microsoft Word, and send emails to every student with the names of his or her team members. One of the things we're very careful about is not to send all emails to all students because we don't want to share that much private information. So each student receives only names and emails of his or her teammates, and so this way they all know whom they work with, but I don't have to share all the information.
And you do all the sorting and
Yes,
cutting and
unfortunately.
pasting to make sure that,
Well, I mean, putting them on teams is not a huge challenge in terms of, you know, how to combine them. I would just sort them by country and then basically match the columns together. That part takes only a few hours. The big challenges with managing that stuff is that first, and this time finally I kind of figured out a way to do it better, but no matter how much you try, there will be always some emails that will not work. So students give emails to the instructors, but those emails sometimes are just wrong and sometimes the count is full and is not accepting emails. This time I was very, very strict with the instructors. They had to test each email before they send those emails to me. And so it seems like we have a few, but it almost looks like it's not a problem we do not address. It's just something happened to the account in the meantime. So that's one challenge. Another challenge is that students sometimes would not change their name. The way the instructor gave me the name is different from what the student uses. And then sometimes I will receive an email from a student saying that I got an email from someone I don't know what they do. And then I check and it turns out the guy's name is whatever his, let's say, Chinese name is, but he introduced himself with an English name. And then there was some confusion there. So there would be issues like that. One thing I also do is there are always dropouts. Some students drop the course in the middle of the semester, and occasionally there are late enrollments. And so creating the initial teams is not a huge deal, but sorting those changes in the first few weeks takes some time. And so to make sure that everyone's informed, I send updates to all affected parties. But then I also have a version of each of those files online. And so instructors can always look up the latest compositions in case they have, you know, a student approaching them, so they see always. And I have a student version that doesn't contain emails, and then I have an instructor version that is with emails and some other, like for example, universal information, instructor information, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, another challenge sometimes is recruiting students. In my class, it's a mandatory project students have to participate. In some classes, instructors would allow them to opt out. They can write something else instead, and I kind of encourage that because the biggest problem we have is what I call missing students. Many students, I mean, come on, you all have that, right? Some students never come to lecture, or some students occasionally don't come to lectures and stuff, and that's exactly the same thing. Out of 100 students, you can expect at least 2 to be not committed enough. And so I almost wish that every student who was not going to participate opted out in the very beginning and did something else. And so this time, to deal with that problem, first we created a online training that I just talked about, but then also there is training test. And students must take the test in order to be placed on teams. Again, I'm not really that concerned about the quality of the answers. I'm concerned about the student knowing what's going on and knowing how to access online. In the first semester, I would have emails from students, receive emails saying something like, I would send them, you know, team assignments, welcome letter, and there was something like, what was going on, what's that scholarship, who are you going, what do you want from me? And I'm like, didn't you talk to your instructor, didn't you talk about that in class? And then eventually they all figure out at first. So this time anyway, we have that screening process. And so like, for example, this semester, even though the project started a week ago, we still have about 100 students out of 1,600 or so who haven't been placed on teams because they haven't completed the training. Because I don't want one bad student to spoil experience for the other 6 in case the student is not participating enough. One of them, by the way, is my student, contacting the student many times to take the test, he comes to class, but he's not participating. So he didn't take the test. So then, by the way, sent a few emails, but he's not replying, so I don't know. So even my students aren't fine. Finally, in some schools, the students would be participating in the project not as a part of the project, but basically as an extra assignment. For example, well, in Ukraine that was the case. I contacted the professor and he said, oh, that's a wonderful project, so let's participate. But first, our semester is different because they have Euro 2012 there, and so the semester was starting earlier, ending earlier. But then also because normally they wouldn't have enough, well, a good enough class in terms of the fit, but also not all students would speak English. So what they did, they just basically put posters all around campus asking if anyone would like to participate, and we've done it in many countries. And so many students would volunteer and just participate basically for fun. Those tend to be, by the way, the most committed ones, unlike the ones who have to participate. Those guys, as long as they come, they're usually extremely motivated, very reliable, very diligent, and so it works very well for them as well. And then occasionally they would also get some extra credit, extra bonus, sometimes it's just for fun. But I'd say out of 30 countries, 47 universities, maybe 3-4 schools in a given semester. So all of the others are in real classes. Course evaluation management. Again, it's very important that the students feel that the project first is beneficial to them. Second, it has to be enjoyable. And so again, luckily for me, I teach international business, so it's so relevant, I mean, it doesn't get any closer. But again, I suppose this can be used in a class on physics, and idea exchange is still valuable. Students still like to meet, in fact, very interesting. I got an email yesterday from a student, Scott. Actually, his real name is Robert Gower, but for some reason he goes by Scott. I don't know. He asked for a reference letter, and so he took my classes being, I don't even know how long ago, must have been one of the very first seasons. And he said, by the way, I'm still in contact with my students. I'm going to China soon to meet one of my friends. Wow. So apparently some of them actually developed fairly close relationships. I haven't heard about any marriages or anything like that yet. But again, apparently for them that's kind of fun. And so they talk on Skype and then Facebook Plus and then obviously Google Plus.
Maybe that was the reason that guy was spamming. He was looking for a mate.
Who knows? I don't know. So, but as long as you emphasize all those benefits, plus again, one thing that we do, and I have a picture here again from the Wooden Seal. We decided to do it in the second semester after one of the instructors asked if I could write a reference letter to you basically saying that you participated. And then I thought, well, I can actually have certificates for all instructors and for all students. Why not? Business administration pays for that, and so we have professional looking achievement certificates mailed to students, not directly to students, to instructors, who then distribute the certificates. And so we have, as you can see, hopefully, logos of all schools, list of the countries, and it says, basically documented proof that the student has experience in international collaboration. And so for students, that's kind of a big deal because they, holding everything else constant, this may be, the reason why they get the job and somebody else doesn't get the job. For American students, I've noticed, at least for my students, it's, nice and they, smile and that's fine. But for students from developing countries, that's a big deal. We got, for example, University in Kosovo and University in Spain last semester. They had such a big deal, like the award ceremony. They had the president of the university, they had the media, they had like everything.
They invited you there?
Unfortunately not me, but they had the pictures, so they had like a big, like conference room and, like a big deal. Students would come and the president of the university would shake their hands and they actually sent me the links to the TV. They had like a news report, like a whole big deal. So for them, that's a big thing. So, and for instructors as well, for many of them it matters. So, so I guess for the students, if you do it, students kind of appreciate that you did something. Yes?
Do you find that in the groups that sometimes the students from these developing countries don't bring quite the same experiences to the group? And then, I can imagine just within different universities, students are going to be like, well, this person is way more prepared and this person isn't making it such a priority. I can imagine that is multiplied when you look at different countries.
Exactly. Well, we have all kinds of issues there from different, in terms of prepared to in terms of material, but then technical skills, some know how to use all those tools like email, Dropbox, others don't, then language proficiency, all those issues. But that's kind of the beauty of the project. The way I try to sell it to my students is it's going to be exactly the same thing when you work tomorrow in a real job. If you
and
work
they don't
with
get
people,
frustrated by it.
well,
I'm always frustrated with joy, but we still need to be together.
Well, that's back to not making a grade is dependent, I think, on,
well,
if this was really, their grade was really highly dependent, they'd get a lot more frustrated.
yeah, well, as I said, I try to emphasize that it's an exercise. And so now we have a series of pass-fails. They have 6 or 7 deadlines that they have to meet. Like by this date, your team has to decide on the company. By this date, your team has to decide on the project. By this date, your team has to, do this and this. As long as you do, it's a pass. And so it's a collection of passes and fails. I even say things like this to my students. This may be your first and maybe last time when you have a chance to truly experiment. If at the end of the project you end up having enemies somewhere in Saudi Arabia, I don't care as long as your team submits the proposal. So if you want to try something new, or if you want to try to talk this way or that way, and eventually upset your teammates, it's fine. It's your chance to experiment. And so frustrated, yes, especially in the middle of the project, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into, well, a month into the project. Many students would be very frustrated. I mean, somebody's never responded. Like out of 7 students, one is for some reason just doesn't care or got sick or something like that. Some students would be frustrated because they cannot reach an agreement. And so I would, for example, get sometimes comments that, this student in whatever country is so stubborn, anything I propose he turns down, and so we cannot reach a consensus.
I'm not
No
frustrated.
problem.
How do you deal with all these emails?
Are
they going to you or they
No, well, I try to emphasize that students should contact only their instructors. I mean,
And do they?
last semester, by the way, I was requesting that every time there is an email related to the project, they put X culture somewhere so I can identify those emails and delete them. There were about 8,000 emails that I had to delete. Not all of them, I must admit, were, I typed them. Some of them were a mess, like, for example, this is your team, so it would be right, 1,000 right there. But it's a lot. It's like dozens and dozens every day. But what I'm trying to say here is that first, in the course evaluations and in the emails that I received, I don't know, like at the end of the project, I sent personally to each student, thank you for participating. And I'd say 300-400 of them reply and say, thank you. Toward the end of the project, they actually appreciate it very much. And so, differences, yes. Frustrating, yes. But that's the whole value. I mean, it's not going to be different, and this is the whole point. I mean, if I put you with a guy from your classroom, it would not be educational. Here, try to figure out how to deal with that guy if he doesn't speak language. Now Google Translate works so well, in fact, shouldn't probably be talking about Google Translate, but anyway, some students admitted that they would be communicating in English exclusively through Google Translate. I last summer taught a course in Colombia, and so they couldn't pay me, and there was something with the band, and I had to communicate with the band in Spanish. I don't speak a word in Spanish, but I was using Google Translate. It almost looked like they never realized that I don't speak Spanish. They sent me the letter, I translated back. I eventually got my money, so it works. So exactly the same thing. So basically the same idea. Now talking about research, and I'll probably do this one and then I'll stop. So there are different ways to do it, and I'll briefly talk about how we do it, but again, you can arrange it differently for your course. First, in terms of what kind of data you can have. What we do is we do a bunch of online surveys. So we have the training test, then we have pre-project survey where we test all kinds of things. Then we have 2 surveys during the project, then we have post-project survey. So we can